Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday to you, March 24th, 2025. I've got all of your stories for your rush hour ride to work. We'll talk about this weekend's box office with Snow White. It did okay. And then White Lotus as a great example for how we can all be our unique self. If you're not watching that show, it's still a good message. I'll share it with you. Also, hot water for Impractical Joker, as he's been accused by multiple people now of inappropriate behavior. I'll share his denial of anything illegal, even though he seems to be admitting to cheating on his wife. Also, Taylor Swift is back after a 100-day hiatus. She's on her Instagram talking to a friend and supporting that friend. Is it Blake Lively? No, it's not. Another just dagger to Blake Lively. And speaking of Blake, we'll be discussing the mutual destruction from a crisis PR expert regarding her and Justin going full speed in the direction of depositions, what this means for them, and also some more talk about possible issues coming up with regard to Social Security checks and Doge cuts and things like that. So we'll save that for the end for those that really don't want to listen to it. But again, a lot to get into here with regard to Blake and Taylor and Justin, and we'll have all these other stories hitting you first. All that and more coming up right now on The Rush. Well, I guess this is considered a bomb. It was supposed to get $100 million internationally and nationally at the box office, but only was in the $80 million range, $43 million domestically. Did you watch Snow White? I don't know. I mean, sure. Live action Disney movies, not exactly my cup of tea. I'm too busy at home watching Temptation Island. I mean, how can you go from that? A completely different tale. All right, in sad news here, actually, George Foreman dead at 76, a legendary boxer, and of course, creator of the George Foreman Grill. Boy, was that a good business deal for him. Made a lot of money on that. And of course, a staple in the boxing world. So RIP to George Foreman. I wanted to go to this White Lotus quote. You know, this clip here. I love sharing the idea of being unique in Hollywood. They always want to make everybody look the same, right? You put your makeup all in the same way. People get their plastic surgery done, their lips and all these. Look, do whatever the hell you want. Well, here we have one of the stars of White Lotus explaining how surprised she was that her teeth became such a big deal. She's a British actress, and she was just relatively plucked out of obscurity the last few years by several different shows. And I guess her teeth are talking. Have a listen.
I mean, I can't believe the impact my teeth are having. Because the Americans can't believe, but they're all being lovely. Yeah. It's pretty much like, I mean, I've seen all these videos just come up on my Instagram of like these orthodontists analysing my teeth and going, so what she has here is a, whatever the hell it is, I don't know what the hell it is, and they like dissect my teeth and say what's wrong with it, but then at the end go, but we don't think she should change a thing. Oh. And it's like, oh my God, it feels so lovely after a real full circle moment after being bullied for my teeth forever, and now people are clapping in an audience because I've got these dashes.
Now people in the go to sort of dentists say, I want teeth like that.
Yeah.
Yes. And you give them to me.
I'd hope that people don't start like filing their teeth so they have gaps.
Has anyone ever thought that you were wearing false teeth on the front?
100%. 100%. People have been like, they're real?
Did you ever study Chaucer when you were, or made to study it? The wife of Bath is one of the pilgrims in Canterbury Tales, and she has a gap tooth, and it was considered a sign of, shall we say, sexual heat to have a gap tooth.
So there it is, sexual. What does she have to say?
Well, I've got several gaps.
Hey! So there she is. And look, they call it the Danny DeVito effect, right? No one thought Danny DeVito was going to work. He's a very unique body type. But in the world where everyone sort of looks the same, be somebody like this and embrace, your uniqueness, right? All right, just a thought, just a little motivation for a Monday morning. Well, this is a sad story. And it's continuing to develop. Impractical Jokers star Joe Gatto, accused of inappropriate behavior by former employee after denying assault claims. So he received assault claims by a TikToker. She shared her story, but she didn't go into specifics about what he actually did, other than that she provided receipts that she met him after one of his shows and were DMing. She was like 19. He's obviously much older, which is creepy in and of itself, especially with a face like that. But either way, he for sure got back with his wife last year, so not good for his marriage. He left the Impractical Jokers to work on, I guess, personal issues. I don't know what his issues are, but it ain't looking good for him. And it's, kind of sad, actually, of course, for the victims, but also because, those guys come off as such lovable and fun. And I'm not saying that they're not within their own comedic crew, but to see that someone would, possibly, if he's guilty of this, abuse that power is really sad. It's a bummer. So I say, shame him to hell if it's true for what he's done. And let's move it on. So we'll discuss more, because I'm telling you right now, when a story like Joe Gatto comes up, there's always more. There's always more. It's not going to be just one person. Again, that's my opinion. We're going to wait and see. But either way, he did make a statement here. He denied the allegations that he assaulted anyone, but he did say that he was acted in ways that were, not good for his family. So we'll have to see what that means. But one woman says she met him when she was 15, but when she turned 18, his behavior towards her changed, becoming much more flirtatious. So either way, again, like I said, these stories, we're gonna probably hear more of them, because this is kind of what happens when someone's toxic. Goes, oh yeah, that guy is an a-hole, and then whatever, and then you get more of that. I mean, look, they're posting DMs about him. He was inviting people back to his place. I mean, listen, not exactly what you do when you're in a happy marriage, but he does say he's used poor judgment and violated the trust of the people, but says he wouldn't assault anyone. So again, we'll have to see if that TikToker shares more of her story in due time. So Taylor Swift, back in the news rags here, returns to Instagram to support her friend Selena. But this is what I love about the article here. They make mention that there's no mention of Blake. So she says, I love this album so much. Oh my God, her, supporting Selena Gomez. And again, it's one of those situations where silence is deafening, right? Taylor not defending Blake Lively is very, very interesting. But now to see she's actually coming online to speak up for another friend could either mean A, she wants nothing to do with the legal drama, and she says, I'm going to remain quiet in hopes I don't have to be a part of a deposition, or she's now questioning her friendship with Blake Lively, of course, following the text message releases where Blake Lively was leveraging her friendship with Taylor Swift in order to curry some sort of grapple with power on the set of It Ends With Us. So either way, we'll have to see if there's any more info that comes out now that Blake's back on. Sources told TMZ that Taylor's back on. Sources told TMZ Taylor never took sides in the script dispute between Blake and Justin Baldoni. She also denied several key claims made via Blake and was particularly upset after the actress name-dropped her as Dragon in the legal drama. It looks like Taylor's Instagram comeback is all about keeping things sweet and positive, at least for the friends who haven't crossed her. So not looking too good there. All right, what I want to get to next is I've got a crisis PR person and one of our favorite TikTok lawyers all discussing what might happen next in the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni case. Now, as far as is this a bombshell moment? Are we expecting crazy court documents coming soon? We are waiting to hear back from the judge about a lot of motions to dismiss. Let's all talk about that next. When I try to explain how wild the Justin Baldoni Blake Lively case is, I think it really comes down to the reason we've never seen this really play out before is people always have too much to lose to take this to the public space that we're seeing it in. Very unique things have to take place. A crazy amount of money and a desire to win over having your skeletons out of the closet, right? And we've got the crisis PR expert, Reputation 911. I've really enjoyed his content because he breaks it down from the angle of crisis PR. Here he explains what they call mutually assured destruction. It's the same issue we have, in geopolitically, where countries have nuclear weapons aimed at each other, and that's considered mutually assured destruction, MAD for short, where you wouldn't fire them at each other because you're basically all going to get killed. It's kind of that same thing in the PR world. Here's what he has to say.
The Justin Baldoni Blake Lively situation has fundamentally changed public relations and PR. And here's what I mean by that. I don't think I can recall ever such a contentious, litigious situation between a PR agency / publicist and their clients. And so it's really fascinating to see, and I think it's a watershed in PR where we have clients suing publicists and PR agencies and publicists suing clients and suing publications like the New York Times. I don't think we've ever seen anything like that. You know why? Neither side wants to sue the other, even if there's money owed, even if maybe some bad work was done, because it's mutually assured destruction. Both sides have information, sensitive information nobody wants out in public. I envision a lot more PR people using Signal moving forward.
Now, what's really interesting and what you're seeing in the Baldoni versus Blake Lively cases was all of this started. Is this the Cuban Missile Crisis moment where the text messages get leaked to Blake Lively's side? Is that like, does Blake Lively then say, well, I've got enough information to sue, and then we later find out, maybe you don't? So here's the Jed Wallace declaration. We shared this last week, right? This is the crisis PR person, or excuse me, the PR guy out of Texas. He was the one who Blake Lively accused was the guy who created this underground army, untraceable, and they had these text messages that they thought proved Jed Wallace was caught red-handed, right? They thought these text messages proved he was organizing this Reddit brigade. Well, as it turns out, he swore in his affidavit, which means if he was caught lying, he would be in big trouble. He said, that's not the case. I didn't have to do anything. People just didn't like Blake Lively. Here's our pal, Not Actually Golden, one of our favorite TikTok lawyers, explaining Jed Wallace and why his declaration is the biggest evidence that is working against Blake Lively right now.
Jed Wallace is a better source for what he meant by his own text message than Blake Lively or Ryan Reynolds is. But that is what a question of fact is. There are two different versions of what may have happened. You first have to figure out which version you think is the truth. Then you apply the law to what you have found as facts. So that's what this sort of highlights. With all the caveats that I always give that, good lawyers can find information anywhere and can make arguments anywhere, this is not good for Blake Lively at all. If what he has said is true, and because he has said it under oath, under penalty of perjury, we have every right to believe that it's true, because there are major consequences for him lying under oath, then this bot farm thing that is the basis of a lot of Blake Lively's retaliation claim is not real.
Yeah, so again, you think, well, people lie under oath. Sure, it does happen, but he's like a third party here. He was, and this is the same reason I feel like if it gets to the point where Taylor Swift is deposed, I don't think she's going to lie under oath. Are you kidding me? She's going to be honest and let the chips fall where they may. So this is a big win for Justin Baldoni's side. Go back to the crisis guy. He talks about something, I love to learn new terms here from the PR world. They call it front running. And it is kind of the idea about getting ahead of a story that's coming out. So even though Justin Baldoni and his lawyers there, Brian Friedman, couldn't get ahead of, responding in due time to the New York Times article, they actually leaked some information they had to TMZ first to help soften the blow, which is a very fascinating move.
One called front running. Now, front running in PR is a strategy where if you know a negative story or article is set to be published about you, especially imminently, you'll preemptively and strategically work to leak information related to that story to a competitive outlet so that they can publish an article before the original story comes out. Now, you do this for a variety of reasons, but two benefits that stand out the most, I think, are first, you want to undercut the original story. The original story was likely worked on for weeks/months. That means they have more information about the crisis in question.
And by the way, the New York Times could argue that's why they didn't give Justin Baldoni any time to respond, because they don't want the wind taken out of their sails, which is still shitty of them, right? I mean, he should be entitled to, I would think, 72 hours to get his facts together to respond to all of the accusations.
They have more context. more substantial detail, which can be more damning ultimately. So by having the opportunity to front run, you can beat that original article with a more straightforward front ran article that's likely less contextualized and less damning for your cause. Now, the second reason you want to front run is that if you're bringing that second outlet to the dance, they're more likely to dance with you. That simply means that they're more likely to work with you on including things that you want in the article. For example, if you want to have more of your statement included, or if you want to connect them with third-party sources who can defend you and support your cause and support your point of view, then that's beneficial. Whereas
and you got to understand, it doesn't mean you're guilty or innocent. It's a smart move. And when you're watching this like 3D chess play out, that's what they're doing. These are the big dogs. They know all of these moves. Now, I just want to say real quickly, as you guys, first of all, I had a fantastic weekend, if anyone's wondering. I really did. I enjoyed, my family had a nice little photo shoot. It was the first one we've had where it's my wife, myself, and the baby. You know how it is when you have a baby. It's like you take photos where you can, but for us to three get in the photo together, be sharing those as they come. But it was also a very challenging weekend. I received so many amazing messages from so many people, and I really want to just let you all know how much I appreciate you. It's not always easy to sort of have an ideology, and I try to give you guys content and play up to your intelligence level. I truly mean this when I say I think I have one of the highest IQ audiences out there and emotional intelligence too. You know what my intentions are when it comes to reporting these stories, which is sometimes to steel man, to put myself in the mind of somebody else. In some cases, maybe even Blake Lively. So if I'm wondering, could she have had some sort of postpartum anxiety? It's not because I'm trying to let her off the hook. It's because I'm trying to understand what she's thinking. We would do this all the time as we watch The Bachelor. There's a villain on the show. What was that guy thinking? What was Greg Grippo really trying to say, right? So those of you, and which is the majority, that gave me that grace to understand when I interview someone that might be controversial or have conversations that, you might wonder, where's Dave going with this? Whenever I see a mob of people in one direction, and in this case, it's more likely than not people believe Justin over Blake. And when I see that, I go, okay, we know that side, but could Blake still get off on this in one way? And we analyze that because I know that you guys trust I'm trying to just bring you the smartest ideas from all sides, and it kind of helps us sharpen the weapon. I will say it's funny. I don't think I'm going to expose her, but I've been getting this troll online who's been sending me an incredible amount of hate, and I was able to timestamp some of the hate she was sending me came hours after she posted that she was at church. So I'm considering tagging her church in the hate she's sending me. I mean, real vicious stuff. I've got photos with my baby and she's sending real awful stuff. And I think I'll take the high road, but it was just funny because when you talk about crisis PR, you wonder, do you address what's the best thing you can do when, you have to deal with people online not always vibing with you. And by the way, I'm specifically talking about audiences that might not get what we do. What's really interesting covering the Rush Hour podcast is that we cover some heavy topics, right? We cover some pretty crazy stuff going on in the world. For me, it's like covering this lack of due process where we're sending these, people to these El Salvadorian prisons, and I'm just seeing the fabrics of our democracy get ripped apart. And then we have very casual conversations about pop culture, and it can be a real tight needle to thread, to the point where people say to me, Dave, I wish you would cover Blake Lively I wish you would hold her to account the way you're holding Donald Trump to account. Someone actually said that to me in a comment section, and it made my mind want to melt. Are you kidding me right now? One is the leader of the free world, and the other one has a failed hair care line and Gossip Girl residuals. Now, not to say that we shouldn't be tough on people if they're making accusations up in this and that, but let's be very clear the differences between, kind of being outsiders, looking in on a he said, she said mega Hollywood lawsuit versus trying to have the conversation and educate each other about some of the atrocities that are going on right now. And that is not hyperbole. Right now, there are some crazy, crazy things going on, including this, these flights to Venezuela where the flights to El Salvador, where the judge is saying, no, you can't be doing that. And they violate these court orders. We've never really seen this play out in this fashion before. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with some of that political talk right after this. And I'm just sneaking this in right here for the loyals at 20 minutes in. I had a really good chat with my pal Donna over the weekend. I look at any drama or adversity that we go through, and I look at it as a growth opportunity. How can I look at my blind spots when I'm having a conversation with someone and try to understand their opinions about things if there's sort of a moment where we disagree or we feel unloved or appreciated? And I tell people this all the time. If we can just take a breath to just sort of shed the ego and that need to respond right away and really listen to each other, that's how we get to a better place. And to be quite frank, that's why I wanted to have conversations with Taylor Lorenz, somebody that people say has harmed content creators in the past, somebody that people say is very closed-minded with their views. Well, I want to talk to that type of person because I feel like moving forward, what's more important to me is not what someone did in the past, but what we can all do when we come together and put our minds to work and put our communities to work. Folks that were worried about me platforming Taylor should more be happy that she platformed me. She's the one that has a bigger audience than I do, believe it or not, 300,000+ on Twitter, 150,000+ on Instagram. I got a chance to argue my point to her audience. And I kind of feel like when you look at it from that lens, a more of an optimistic lens, you can understand that having those conversations, I believe, is better than not having those conversations. All right, let's keep this conversation going with regard to due process, right? That's what it's all about, a conversation of due process. If we don't have due process, we don't have democracy. Let's listen to what they're saying on the news organizations about whether or not these what they're calling gang members we sent to El Salvador was the right thing. And as we're finding out, several of them, one was here legally by seeking asylum. That does not make them an illegal. That makes them a legal asylum seeker. And then someone else was, I guess they're finding out, just someone, like a hairstylist. Have a listen.
Determine what they're doing. Sent to a man's prison, and El Salvador said no.
I mean,
so it's the question of if you are suspending the ability to have a day in court.
By the way, yes, Time magazine is reporting from the prison system that a woman was on that plane, and even El Salvador sent them back. So he's saying, oh, we can't discuss the details. That's the problem. We don't know all of the details, and we should know this. There are innocent people caught in the crossfire.
That you get the list right.
But
that you can verify that these people are gang members.
Look, every one of them were here illegally. So first of all,
Not true. At least one of them was here seeking asylum, which is a legal process.
We had every right and should deport every one of these individuals. If you want to make a special case for one, that's fine. But underlying that is the Alien Act that has determined that Commander-in-Chief has the absolute authority to determine what they're doing.
All right, so anyway, he really says a whole bunch of nothing. And here we have another instance, a question of due process. Are we doing the right thing by without sending, and again, this is my whole point, right, is we have immigration judges. If you're going to deport someone, they have the right to respond and have a hearing, I think within 24 hours or 7 days, like a very tight amount of time with immigration judges to find out, are we doing the right thing? By sending a whole group of people to El Salvador, you're violating a human right. You're taking people without due process and putting them in a very dangerous prison.
How do you determine, or how do your people in the field determine that somebody is a gang member?
Look, there's various methods. I've noticed in the media this week, a lot of them don't have criminal histories. Well, a lot of gang members don't have criminal histories. Just like a lot of terrorists in this world They're not in any terrorist database, right? We only know the information what's in databases based on, for instance, most terrorists we arrest that are identified by the U.S. government are later identified through a Title III investigation or through an undercover operation. They're not in any terrorist screening database. We know that. A lot of gang members, I started as a cop in 1984. Many gang members don't have a criminal history. So we have a count of social media. We have a count of surveillance techniques. We have to count on sworn statements from other gang members. We got to count on, wiretaps and Title IIIs. Everything involved with the, criminal investigations come into play. So just because someone hasn't been arrested and charged with a crime yet, doesn't mean they're a member of a gang.
But how do you? I mean, what we've heard from lawyers representing some of these people is that they deny that they're members of this gang. Or either, Tren de Aragua or MS-13. Do they get a chance to prove that before you take them out of the country and put them into a notorious prison in a country that they're not even from? I mean, do they have any due process at all?
Look, due process. Where was Lake and Riley's due process? Where were all these young women?
Oh, so we call this a straw man, where he says, where is Lake and Riley's due process? Someone who sadly and tragically was murdered by an illegal immigrant. But it's a straw man because it's an argument he's asking for due process, right? Now, the person that was illegally here who committed that murder they will go to trial and go through that system, right? More immigrants, or I should put it this way, U.S. citizens commit crimes at a higher rate than immigrants do. They have no sort of motivation to commit crimes. Not to say it doesn't happen, not to say there aren't dangerous people, but per capita speaking, you're more likely to have an issue with an American citizen than you are an immigrant, whether illegal or here illegally. So this response is to pull away from the very obvious due process. No one is arguing to keep dangerous illegals in our country. Nobody. But run them through the very simple system to ensure that when you are deporting them, they are who you say they are. And you're not just sending people to this prison like we've got the guy seeking asylum. He's a professional soccer player. He did this sign, and apparently they're calling that a gang sign, even though they're saying that it means "I love you" in one country's culture. And then they're also saying he had a gang tattoo, when in fact he just had a tattoo of one of the soccer teams he idolized. So real dangerous stuff, and this we should be calling it out, and hopefully the reporter does.
And they were killed and raped by members of TDA. Where was their due process?
Well, the people that did that should be prosecuted.
By subway, where's her due process?
Well, sure.
The bottom line is that plane was full of people designated as terrorists. Number one. Number two, every Venezuelan migrant on that flight was a TDA member based on numerous criminal investigations, on intelligence reports, and a lot of work by ICE officers.
So how do you?
So my question is this: I'm wondering, do the ICE have a quota they need to do? And if that's the case, are they just finding people from Venezuela that have tattoos and just connecting the dots that aren't there? I really don't know. So here's our final clip we're going to play this episode. This is the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick. He basically says, there might be some issues with getting Social Security checks paid. And very sadly, look at the people interviewing him that are agreeing with him. It's absolutely crazy, the scenario he lays out. Have a listen.
Let's say Social Security didn't send out their checks this month. My mother-in-law, who's 94, she wouldn't call and complain. She just wouldn't. She'd think something got messed up, and she'll get it next month.
Yeah.
A fraudster always makes the loudest noise, screaming, yelling, and complaining. And if all the guys who did PayPal, like Elon knows this by heart, right? Anybody who's been in the payment system and the process system knows the easiest way to find the fraudster is to stop payments and listen.
Yeah.
Because whoever screams is the one stealing.
Yeah. Whoever screams is the one stealing. And how about these jabronis? Yeah, okay. Terrible. Well, let your guests talk and don't make those noises. Listen, this is terrible, right? You know how many people live paycheck to paycheck in our world? And just to think they're not going to complain if they don't get their Social Security check, the bare minimum they're probably living on, fixed income, making every decision to stretch that dollar for the rest of the month. And we have this guy telling us, and by the way, this isn't some random guy. This is the Commerce Secretary telling us, if we miss a month, we'll get you next month. Now, they're saying, well, they probably won't cut Social Security. What they're going to do is they're going to move from, people getting verified for Social Security over the phone. Now they're going to have to go in person. They're also going to be shutting down Social Security locations, making it harder for people to actually do that in person. There's going to be a lot of pain out there. And it's sad to think that people who are really going to be waiting. Look, I remember times when I was broke and I was on unemployment and I was like really needing that check to come in, and you were just like either waiting for the deposit to come through. And I remember that feeling, and that's not the thriving world we want to live in, especially with people that may be retired and they did all the right things, and now the sort of the grid and the system around the infrastructure to get these checks delivered is crumbling. So preemptively, it looks like they're setting the stage for the chaos that's to come. We'll be here to call it out. That's all we can do, right? Because we're living in uncharted times, uncharted territory. And, I appreciate those that appreciate the pushback. For those that think this is some crazy partisan issue, maybe it hasn't affected you yet. But I really hope it doesn't affect your mom, your grandma, your siblings, somebody in your family that needs, health care or, any amount of issues. The Veterans Hotline. For those that this isn't affecting, what a privileged life you have. But that's where we're at. I appreciate you guys for tuning in this morning. Let's keep spreading that love. And remember, no fan of mine, no listener of my channel spreads any hate to anybody else. We don't need it. We don't have the time. Onward and upward, right, folks? We'll see you this afternoon. I'll have a couple other videos for you regarding Blake Lively, so make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already. And we'll talk to you then. I'm Dave Neal. This is The Rush.